We're back live on JH Diesel's channel, guys. Welcome back. We have got our Duramax drag truck, drag and drive truck, whatever you want to call it, getting ready for Ultimate Call Out Challenge. We're trying to make it there. Ultimate Call Out Challenge is only like a little over a week away, and we need a couple days to get there. So I think we got a total of about 7 days. 8 days until we have to be on the road to get there to Ultimate Call Out Challenge. So right now, the engine is out, as you guys know, waiting on to get stuff back from the machine shop, and we're gonna get that thing back together. This thing here, we are converting it to 4-wheel drive. I've got other parts coming, so while we're waiting on that stuff, we are gonna go get the parts trucks pulled out, and we're gonna start getting the front end and everything out of those trucks. So right now, this is where we're at, about to do the 4-wheel drive conversion on it. I figured you guys would really enjoy this. If you have a 2001 to 2010 2500 HD and you want to convert to 4-wheel drive, this will give you an idea of what you have to do and how you go about doing it. So the only thing I'm not going to show you in this video is the transfer case. You will have to change the transmission rear tail housing on a Duramax. You have a 2-wheel drive. They have a bolt-on tail housing on the back of the trans. I have changed them in the truck. They're kind of sketchy to do it that way, but I recommend to do it on a trans stand pulled out and do it that way. But if you don't get it all lined up correctly, something could fall out. It could make a mess. I've done them in the truck, not recommended. So what you're gonna have to do is basically you pull the rear housing off the transmission and you buy the 4-wheel drive housing, which has the 4-wheel drive adapter, bolt down the transmission. You get you a transfer case from 01 to 10 Duramax. An LMM is different than the rest of them if you go with electronic. If you use a manual case like what we're doing, we're actually using a manual LMM case because I have one. So LMMs were 07.5 to 10. So the 01 to 07s, they've got transfer case pump rub issues and some other stuff that we always fix. We're gonna run that in ours just because I have one, and to buy a used one saves you about $1,000–1,500 for a used one. So on top of that, the front drive shaft is coming out of the LMM. That'll go right into this. The front drive shaft, your front end, all that stuff, and the transfer case, it's all coming out of a parts truck that I have, and it should all go in there just fine. So Justin's already pulled out the original cross member that goes in the bottom. Obviously, this truck never had a differential. I'm gonna find out on Pitman and idler arm stuff. I don't think there's an issue there with the gearbox. Some of these trucks, they say has a 2-wheel drive, is a different gearbox. I haven't found that out, but by the end of the video, I'll let you guys know on that. So as of right now, we're gonna go grab our other truck out of the woods. I've got a 2010 parts truck I bought, used the motor out of it, trans, all that kind of stuff. That's what I got the transfer case out of. We're gonna go drag that thing out of the woods, and hopefully Justin can be able to cut everything out properly and then get it set in this guy right here.
Goodness.
What do you think of our donor truck? We're getting it before it becomes one with the earth, which is becoming very close to doing that.
Looks like
may have to, we may have to hook the steering up to get it over there.
No.
Steering is a little.
Well, luckily, that's pretty easy.
Down there, but are you gonna be able to drive this thing, man? Here's our donor truck, man. I robbed some parts off this thing. We're just about down to where there's honestly nothing left to rob off of it. Once we pull the front end out, at that point, I think it's time to take this thing to the scrapyard. The wires are left in it. Everything's all chewed up. This thing was in a really nasty accident a long time ago and jackknifed the trailer and it totaled the truck out. I bought it for the motor and trans out of it, which I used. It was great. And the rear end's still good. And then obviously the front end is still good. That's what we're gonna be using for the front. So we will. Huh? Dude, what if a snake or something jumps on you when you're inside of it?
We won't be using this truck. I'll burn this puppy to the ground.
Oh, so we're gonna get this thing pulled out of the weeds here, get her pulled over there, and this is what we're gonna be doing basically. This is our donor truck, so we are gonna take the front end out of it, and this front end, this truck actually only has like 100,000 miles on it, so we're gonna take the front end out, we're gonna cut the bracket off the frame, and then hopefully be able to just swap everything into that very easily without a problem. And
I don't think it's gonna be a big problem.
I just looked down, I see that TCM. Those things are like huge money right now. Maybe I should see if that thing's worth anything. I think they're on total back order. I've had one sitting here in the weeds all this time. Sorry if you've called me and asked me for one.
Not surprising.
So we'll hook the steering up and hopefully get it over there with no problems.
got me all dusted out.
It just had to be done. We couldn't resist it with you sitting back there. So that we'll
My
give it a
AC's not going to work nearly as good. It's full of dirt now. The windshield's covered in dust.
I saw the windshield just disappear. I was talking. Well, now we'll figure out how to get the rest of the way. Oh yeah. Basically, the bottom of the diff bolts into a cross member. The side of the diff bolts into this bracket, which that hole is in the frame. This hole is not. May have to drill one hole. And this bracket, we're hoping he can cut that right off. And basically, once he cuts that bracket off, he can weld it right to the new frame with no issues. Hopefully, all goes well and smooth. But this is how you convert your two-wheel drive Duramax to a 4x4.
You just buy a four-wheel drive truck that you can cut the front end parts off of.
Well, you can wreck four-wheel drive one, okay? I just happen to have one laying around. But some of you guys get stuck with the two-wheelers and you want to know what to do. This is how you do it. This truck currently has one Justin power.
Which is not a lot. That's 6 car.
So the diff is out. Got that thing going. And then basically, from what it looks like, you're saying cut this bracket here right at the frame.
Yeah, this bracket, it's just welded around it.
Yep.
Unless they did something goofy like weld the inside, but I doubt it. So hopefully I can just go around this, cut it off. And then this one here, we need this bracket. This holds the differential and the cross member.
Yep.
This bolt hole right here is already in the new frame. So that will be the bolt to line everything up to where it all goes back, you know, where you've got a good alignment point here.
Cool.
So I'll just cut this one loose, cut this one loose, bolt this to the differential, bolt it to the front of that truck, tack this in place. I'll get this off. Once the differential's tacked in, I'm gonna cut this piece out, put it in the frame. Once I get everything tacked in, make sure everything's good, then I'll burn everything in. And
you never know.
Yeah, I honestly believe a day.
Yeah, you've only been working on it for like 4 hours. 3?
I think 2.
Been 2 hours? Yeah, 2 hours.
Well, this truck taking it apart probably only an hour and a half.
It definitely has an advantage when the engines are out. Hey, if you're gonna do this, it is I guess we do have a huge advantage with the engines being out. I never really thought about that, but
so the top of this bracket between the motor mount and this bracket, I've got 1 3/4 inch up here at the top. It gets a little smaller at the bottom. It goes to 1 9/16. All right, so I think I've got all our measurements that we need, or I feel comfortable with the measurements that I have. Because of the location points that I have to locate that other front end, I don't think we'll have a problem. So now, I'm probably gonna cut a little bit more than most people would. You could definitely take a grinder and work your way around this. I'm just gonna take a torch and cut this out because this frame is no good. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Then I take it over to a bench and clean it all up. That way I make sure I don't hurt my brackets, because I don't care about the frame, I care about the brackets. So let's get to that. Got some water, got a fire extinguisher. Just like that, we have 2 brackets that we need off the frame. We didn't catch anything on fire. So now I'm gonna take them over to a table and clean them up with a grinder and get them to where they fit the frame nice. We got the bracket off. We're all in pretty good shape, and that's what I wanted. So. Kind of gives you an idea of another way to do it. You can wash it all off there with a torch, then you just come back with a grinder and clean it up. But you're putting a lot of heat in the part. That's why I did the other one kind of the opposite way. But I wanted to show you that it could be done that way too if you want to do it that way. Now you can see we got a pretty clean part. Got to knock a little bit of slag off, but other than that, it's pretty clean. All right, so you can see we've got to cut this little ring right here out. This is a bushing that goes through the frame, and I need that bushing. So I set up the camera the best I could. You can see me do this side. I got to cut this side too, but at least you can see me cut this side, and we'll go from there. There's the piece I needed. You can see there's the piece I needed. You can see it's got a flange on this side. It's welded. So I wanted to just cut that piece of the frame out because, like I said, we're not using it anymore. Now I can go around and clean all this up nice, clean all this up nice, have a nice part when I'm finished. All right, so here's our three pieces. This is the piece that actually holds the differential side, driver's side. This is the piece that goes through the frame on the passenger side. And this is the piece that holds the top of the differential on the driver's side. You can see we cleaned them all up. Everything's looking good. So now we need all this put in. That's kind of why I cut the pieces of the frame out, because like I said, I was more worried about getting these out, having them nice and clean. And that's what we did. So now I got these nice clean pieces to go back in, and we'll get them in this truck, get the front differential hanging in. We'll have a 4+4 or 4x4, however you want to look at it. And this old girl here, bye-bye, we appreciate your parts. Okay, the next step I'm taking, doesn't necessarily have to be the next step. The next step I'm taking is I put this bar in here. Now I pulled measurements before, so I double checked all my measurements, putting this bar in here. And my measurements that I pulled off the other frame were exactly the same as where this bar comes in out. So I'm confident in that. I'm going to drill my hole in here, get my sleeve back in the frame. So I'm going to center punch this. Now, the reason I used a 1/4" bit rather than just using a hole saw from the start, I want to transfer my mark on the other side of the frame. So I have my center mark. The hole saw I'm going to be using just a hair small for what's going in it. So I'll take a deburring tool, and that way I can adjust it if I need to. If I feel like I need to adjust the inside or the outside, I can adjust it. Good. Look at that. Right through both sides of the frame. This is meant to be. This thing's tapered, so the back side of it, that's why I didn't want to go with a bigger bit, because the back side of it tapers down, so I didn't want a big hole in the back side. So why I left it like this. Gives me a little bit of room in the backside to adjust it. And take a deburring tool, just clean this up a little bit. Good to go.
Brother, what do you got going on?
It's close, man. Got the diff sitting in there. I welded this in. I pushed the bushing back in it. Got this in place. So that bolts to the passenger side of the differential.
Yep.
I've got this bracket bolted to the top of the differential. I cleaned up the frame right here. It's gonna come up into here. I've got the bolt sitting right over there with the bracket that bolts to the bottom of the differential, wraps around the back side of that bracket. I ground that, clean that all up.
So basically gonna put the diff up there, and the last thing you really gotta weld are those two brackets over there.
This bracket and that bracket.
Yep.
Yep.
And that bolts to the cross member, and the other one just bolts right to the frame.
Yeah, the cross member bolts to this one, and then goes to the other side of the frame now.
Cool.
And then this one just goes up in here. Once we get it set into place, then I'll weld it in.
Cool. All right, man, I'll give you a hand getting her in there. Bam, dude. Looking good. Looking like she's about to have an engine set down in her. So the differential is in. Justin got it placed in there just right. Everything is perfect. He went ahead and, I mean, really it wasn't too bad of a swap. I think you had about
a
day into it. A solid day.
A couple hours.
I don't even go a couple hours. You know, you painted everything, did a bunch of stuff. I would say a solid day, 8 hours, 9 hours at the most. And, I mean, it looks freaking phenomenal. So we have our front differential in here now. This whole setup is done. Obviously, with having an engine out of the truck made it super easy to do. With an engine in the truck might be a real pain. On a gas motor, maybe it's a little different, but on the diesels, I think it'd be very difficult to do this inside the truck.
Yeah,
with
I
an
think
engine
you'd
in
have
it.
a hard time
It'd
getting
be
brackets.
very difficult.
Brackets.
But to be honest, to
Definitely be done.
pull an engine out, it only takes about, you know, 4 hours, 5 hours to do. So it's like you take the engine out, do this swap, put your engine back in. I know it sounds like a little bit of work, but it's really not terribly crazy. So front differential's in. All we gotta do now is put CV axles in it, which we have, and wheel bearings.
New wheel bearings in it.
We're gonna put some fresh wheel bearings in it. The CV axles will go in it. Four-wheel drive motor was robbed out of that a long time ago. Not a big deal. And we'll get this thing all set up and ready to go. As far as the transmission goes, I'm gonna go over there and show you guys what I was talking about in the transmission the other day. So here is the transmission that originally came out of the two-wheel drive truck. And what we're gonna be doing is swapping this tail. Well, we're not using this transmission. I've got another built one. But this tail housing here, basically all unbolts. That was the tail housing section I was talking about. It completely unbolts, and then it's gonna have the adapter housing for a four-wheel drive on there, which has a flange. I shouldn't say a flange, but it's got a plate on the back. So we're gonna put that in. I got a transfer case, front drive shaft, all that stuff same on every truck. So we'll put that in there. And then all we gotta do after that is swap the main harness out, which goes down to the transfer case and the transmission. So, all right, guys, so we got our four-wheel drive actuator there. And then Justin is buttoning up the four-wheel drive system on it. We had to put our CV axles in it. And after that, this thing is totally done. So CV axles will be in it and the actuator. We did have to buy new wheel bearings for it. The two-wheel drive wheel bearings are different than the four-wheel drive wheel bearings. So you do have to buy new hubs or take them out of the other truck. We felt because we were gonna do in high rates of speed in this thing and hoping to make it last, I'd rather not reuse wheel bearings out of something that could potentially fail and leave us stranded. So either way, he's got one axle left to put in, doing the brakes, getting all that stuff buttoned up, and then we're getting back on this engine back here. and we're gonna get that thing ready to rip. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching the JH Diesel channel. We will see you next time. Hopefully see this thing running next time.